周一長談，我哋又翻嚟同大家深入時事話題。今日我哋頭先上半段同大家傾嘅咧，就係我哋加拿大嘅參議院到底話我哋做咗啲咩嘢？我哋嘅結論Cameron 教授同我哋講嘅就事實上而家已經係變成係政府嘅代言人，係政府酬庸制嘅一種制度。所以大家都話要改革，但係改革要改革去邊度咧？事實上改革國會改革參議院份至要廢參議院呢個係多年嚟嘅話題㗎啦。Stephen Harper 喺上一次競選嘅時候，佢曾經就講過話，佢要立志要改革國會，所以咧佢喺我哋佢上咗任之後咧，佢係冇任何 senator 退休之後，佢係冇再選任何人，佢亦都冇再 appoint 任何人嘅。但係堅持到最後，佢喺2008年嘅時候一次宣佈咗19個人，然之後到而家為止，佢已經 appoint 咗57個佢自己嘅親信，佢自己支持佢籌款嘅人，政黨保守黨嘅嗰啲擁躉嘅人，最重要嘅人，佢冚唪唥 appoint 晒入去啦。佢有咁嘅意願，但係咩原因造成佢到最後係完全妥協，完全叫做順水推舟，冚唪唥因循苟且咧 ？So what Stephen Harper has made it his the mandate and his campaign promise to do the reform of the senators.
Right.
But what stopped him, and what do you think we should do about? What is an ideal situation for us to be in?
Well, Harper is from the West, so it's the West that has demanded reform because the West is underrepresented. His first strategy was, I thought, a very interesting one, which was simply to not appoint senators and instead to require provinces to actually elect the people that they would like to see in the Senate, and he would then appoint the people who the provinces elect.
Like a pool of candidates.
Exactly. So it introduces some element of democracy into the process of selecting senators. But then, at the end of his first minority government, it looked like he might lose office, and so at the last minute he made a whole bunch of appointments. And those appointees are exactly the people who are now giving him grief. So now what the government has done is they have turned to the Supreme Court, and they've asked the Supreme Court to provide guidance to the government on how to proceed with reforming the Constitution. Can they undertake some reforms just through acts of parliament, for example, term limits? Or do they need, if they want to do more drastic reforms, for example, either abolishing or making it elected or changing its composition somehow, do they need only 2/3 of the provinces, that is 7 provinces, and 50% of the vote across the country, or do they need unanimity? Because this could be seen as a fundamental change.
Does that involve another referendum?
Now, we don't have referenda in our Constitution, but many people are arguing that is the solution. And in fact, that would be my view. Once the court has told us what is the constitutional procedure for changing the Senate, then I think what the government needs to do is to introduce a referendum and say, here are the options that are open to us. Do we want to abolish? Do we want to make it elected? Do we want to leave it as it is? And then put that to the electorate. And then once the electorate has said, this is the option that we prefer, then proceed down the path that the Supreme Court has given us, which is the way to change the Constitution by constitutional means.
Now, from the government, from a student and government point of view, is that it seems that obviously we do not have a legal procedure set and written and carved in stone.
It's not clear.
That the government can follow.
That's right.
So from the very beginning, parliamentary reform is something of an idea.
Yes.
And no one knows how to do it, what to do it. But do you have any idea where we need to go to?
Yes, that's exactly right. These are all matters of fundamental interpretation of the Constitution. And so we need the Supreme Court to give us their assessment, their guidance on what they believe the Constitution obliges governments to do if they want to change the Senate. But it's also a political question. You have to, what we've seen in Canada is a series of efforts to change the Constitution, the Meech Lake Accord, the Charlottetown Accord, which failed. and which have really made it very difficult for politicians to go to the electorate with proposals for constitutional change because there's fatigue. Canadians don't really want to talk about the Constitution. And for the most part, since the Senate may not have a lot of legitimacy, but it's kind of an inoffensive, innocuous institution. It's not that important. Many politicians for a long time have been inclined to say, there are bigger issues, let's not worry so much about the Senate. The reason why we're talking about the Senate now is, of course, the scandals around the expenses and the cost of the Senate, and all of this is eroding our trust in our politicians and undermining the vitality of our democracy. So I think that we're going to see continuing pressure for reform. And I think that the referendum is the best way to go because that's how you actually engage the public and you build a mandate. But of course, we also have to figure out what are the legal routes. And that's, as you say, not yet clear.
One thing that I think it also helped for our audience to understand is, yes, now the whole issue is at the Supreme Court. My question is first, is there a time limit where they need to come to some kind of a recommendation or suggestion? Yes. And second is, who are the judges? Is that also a political appointees, and how impartial or how much confidence we can put into them, so to expect them to have some kind of a very non-partisan and very long-term prospects, of long-term value for Canada?
Well, we have an independent judiciary in Canada, and one could have a whole show on the question of how judges are appointed in Canada, but by and large, it's done in a manner that guarantees the neutrality and the independence of the judges, and Canadians have a high degree of confidence in our judiciary. I think that I would have, and I think most people would be inclined to accept, and I expect that the government would accept whatever it is that the Supreme Court ultimately rules on this matter. So there, I don't think there's a big question.
So how many judges are there in the Supreme Court?
I believe it's 9, but I have to check.
And they are all appointed. After they are appointed by the by the Prime Minister, do they need approval or the kind of an endorsement from the MPs?
No, the process is that the Prime Minister appoint. You don't have. That's right. You don't have the hearings process like in the United States, and so. But I think that they are the ones to tell us what the appropriate constitutional procedures would be for changing the Constitution. The government is likely to respect that, and then the question becomes. Can you build a political mandate for undertaking those sorts of constitutional changes? Do Canadians indeed care enough about the Constitution, about the issues at stake, to want to move in that direction?
So our conversation gets, and from what you have elaborated, really got me interested, is that people really doesn't care much about how our parliament function and whether there's having us non-elected senators, but it's only because of the scandals that we need to the people start to get interested in this conversation. So what do you think at the end of the day is that what is an ideal situation?
Right.
Is the current the institution, the current design good enough? Just to make the tweaks, improvement, and make it work.
Sort of inherent in your question is the issue of whether the problem here is the rules, and we need better rules, or it's the character of the individuals, the occupants of these institutions. And I would argue a lot of people are saying that the expense scandal shows we need clearer and better rules. I personally believe that while that may be partly true, that it's not entirely clear what kinds of expenses are considered legitimate by the Senate, and a lot of this is pretty murky.
There can be procedural regulations.
They can enhance, they could tighten their procedures, but at the end of the day, I think what we have to do is we have to think of senators as incumbents of offices who have a job to fulfill or a job to perform. They are fundamentally legislators, and we need to focus on the aim of the activity of legislation is to produce laws that are in the public interest. That's fundamentally what they should be doing. I don't think most Canadians make a distinction much between the Senate and the House of Commons. They hear corruption, and that leads them to have doubts about the entire political system. And the reason why the senators are getting into this problem is because they're not doing, and it's a problem that's inherent in both the Senate and the House of Commons, that our legislators are not focusing enough on legislation, and they're becoming too partisan. In the House of Commons, that partisanship is reflected in the kind of debate you have in question period, the fact that ordinary MPs have little influence because they're whipped by their parties, because the decision-making is centralized in the office of the Prime Minister. A similar problem happens in the Senate. Many of these appointees are deeply partisan, and they're doing partisan work rather than legislating.
Matt, I think this is getting very interesting, but our time is limited. And 喺我哋今日未結束之前，想提醒各位嘅就係呢個話題會係下一次選舉裏邊最熱烈嘅話題。所以當我哋睇好多政客或者係候選人辯論嘅時候，記住今日Dr. Cameron 同我哋講嘅，基本上我哋嘅憲法結構同埋我哋基本嘅一啲政治嘅文化背景，咁樣我哋對於聽佢哋辯論，我哋會比較有嘅清楚嘅判斷力同埋清楚嘅了解佢哋嘅內容。所以咧，週一長談今日同大家傾到呢處，下個禮拜再見，拜拜。